A very great question to ask that's not too intrusive, that's very common, is just simply how many overnights do you guys do?
That's it. That is the critical question that you can put together a lot of pieces of the puzzle with.
If you ask too many questions about the schedule, they're like, well, this guy doesn't want to work. He's lazy. You know what I mean? So
well,
you got to be careful.
Hello, aviators. Welcome back to the Pro-Pilot Playbook Podcast, bringing you the tips, tricks, hacks, and shortcuts to get you into that cockpit faster and cheaper. I'm Sean Richey.
And I'm Mike Martin.
And we're back again with another episode.
Yeah, another episode. I think this will be a good one, especially for people that, are a little more advanced in their training and they're getting ready to do that first interview.
Wait, Mike, real quick though.
Yeah.
Because we always do this at the end.
Yeah.
I said I wanted to do this at the beginning here. If you guys are enjoying this show, I mean, it is becoming more and more popular, but nothing helps more than hitting that subscribe button. Even if you don't want the notifications, although hitting the notification button would be nice too, but at least throw us a thumbs up. And if you're too busy to go to ProPilotPlaybook.com and check out our stuff we have there, you can always now go to the App Store and download the Pro-Pilot Playbook app, which we're pretty excited about. After you have the app, you can view our entire course we sell in there. If you're a live coaching member, which we do once a week, you can chat with us and ask us any question you want once a week. We have this thing scheduled. You can do that from the app anywhere on planet Earth that you have an internet signal. But definitely, this thing is growing. It's becoming bigger and bigger. We actually have been contacted by some, at least one pretty high profile YouTuber or podcaster out there that this thing's actually working, taking off. We're helping so many people. We love all the emails you're sending us, the kudos, and you guys got me into flying. I never thought about being a pilot, and it's changed my life. We love that stuff. It's so humbling. It is the reason we started all this, and
our subscribers are our inspiration. So please, definitely subscribe to that channel. If we would have started this, 5 years ago, and nobody would have subscribed or liked our videos, then there's no way we'd still be doing it. So, it really gives us the momentum, at a minimum. So, thanks for bringing that up. And, it always annoys me all the YouTubers bring that up at the beginning, so we never did, but that's probably the time to do it. So
here we
pound
are.
that like button for us. But we'll get into the good advice here. So this is from Thomas in Los Angeles, and this email is about, he has an upcoming interview, and the reason we want to read it, it's a little lengthy, but so I'll summarize it. But the reason we want to read it is we do get a lot of these interview questions, and that's why we're getting new innovative products, and that was inspiration for one of our new products, which is where Sean and I actually interview you. We have a prep course for that. There's a bunch, and this is good information for people that want to be an airline pilot. There's a bunch of companies that actually prep people for airline pilot interviews. You pay them lots of money, and they really work. They work really good. In fact, if you have an interview at a major airline like Delta or United or something, you'd be crazy to go into that without a prep course.
Well, it's beyond that. And these things that these folks, there's I could name 3 off the top of my head that are do all the interview prep for airlines, and these things are thousands of dollars. And it's not just you'd be crazy not to do it. Like, you have to do it because everybody you're sitting next to in the interview has done it. And the interview is so complex and locked down so tight that they can tell if you haven't had any interview prep.
Totally.
But nobody's doing it for the corporate stuff, which is, that's our world. And like you were probably just getting ready to say, Mike, over the last few months, we've gotten emails just like this one that, folks trying to walk into a corporate interview. And so that's why we've created that product now on our website.
Yeah. So this one's from Thomas from Los Angeles. He's got an interview. It doesn't really say his experience level, but I'm assuming it's like one of his first interviews because he sounds very excited with a corporate operator. And he's reviewed, some of the normal. I'm reading here, depressed. He's given us lots of compliments. He says he's a big fan, which Sean and I love compliments. We need three things: food, water, and compliments. We love the flat.
Right.
But yeah, thank you, Thomas, for all of that. But basically, he's asking at the end of the interview, which he knows and he hears. They typically say, "Do you have any questions for us?" And he's thought of some things, but he wants to know our opinion on what to ask. And this is really great. And in my opinion, this is what can really differentiate you as a candidate when they're interviewing several people, because they're going to ask the same questions about your experience level and maybe overcoming obstacles and all that kind of stuff to all the pilots. But your response to "Do you have any questions for us?" is going to totally be different than anyone else's response because it's your own, it's your own thoughts.
Right.
So this is a very, very good thing to prepare for, and we'll give you some ideas in this video on what we think you should ask.
On that note, these guys do this for a living. A lot of them, they already know what questions they would be asking or whatever. So the more bland or general your questions are, if you go in there with some detailed questions, like the ones that we're about to rattle off here, questions Mike and I would be asking if we were in a corporate interview.
Yeah.
They can tell, this individual's got his stuff together. He's thinking, like chess here, 3-4 head moves ahead. He's not just wanting to know, how many airplanes do you have? It's anyway, let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, you can start, Sean, and I'm sure we need to touch on. You need to thoroughly research the company, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, especially so these corporate operators. We've said this in the past. You could be dealing with. I use this word all the time. More or less like a mom and pop company. Maybe they got one airplane and 2 pilots that fly it, maybe a third, so guys can have some time off or they have to go to training. Or you could be dealing with that, or you could be dealing with something like a whole flight department. Like here in Cincinnati, we have some major players here in Cincinnati. Procter and Gamble, the Kroger company that owns like 26 different grocery store chains.
Right.
Cintas, the list goes on. In L.A.,
oh my God!
Yeah, these things
talk about it the whole episode.
Probably. Right. So, you got to do your research on the company. If you're going into an interview at a Fortune 500 flight department, you better be up to speed on any current events. Some company history, the stuff they're proud of, the whole kit and caboodle. I mean,
absolutely.
That goes for any company, but the stuff is way easier to find at those, high-end hoagie outfit, big corporate stuff.
Right. And I would categorize the questions you ask, and now that we're on this topic of two, there's 2 types of questions to ask here. One are what we just talked about and what you're bringing up, which is things that they expect you to ask that's going to impress them, and they're basically tactical questions to ask them, and that's what Sean has mentioned that are very important. And then the second group would be things you actually want to know before you take the job, and depending on how bad you want the job is how much of a balance of those questions you are, but I think any quality of life questions, and there's very tactful ways to ask those, are important for you, whether you're going to take the job. And some of those questions are important to them because it shows you really have done your homework and you are concerned with the job. And they also probably are proud, in some operators, to answer those questions because they feel their quality of life is very good and the places they go are very good and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But basically what Mike is saying here is you can use your question to, I guess for lack of a better word, impress them with your knowledge of what the company's doing. So if you're going into, a holding company that owns a bunch of different restaurant brands, you could say something like, hey, I've seen the recent news, how you guys just bought this next chain of restaurants, and that's awesome. That is huge growth for your company. Is this the path you guys are planning on continuing, this type of growth? That kind of thing.
Right.
It's you could possibly be asking questions that's above who's sitting in the flight department interview.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
above their head.
And you could link that into where they're going, right? So I recently read that you acquired this business in Minneapolis. Should I expect to go there? Well, that's telling you two things. It's telling them you know what you're doing, you did your homework, and it's telling you whether or not you like Minneapolis, that's probably where you're going a lot. They're going to answer that question for you. So, yeah, that's really great, really great. And then there's some really basic questions you can ask to get an idea for the schedule. We don't really advise, and we'll get into the money thing in a little bit, but do it too heavily on the interview, talking about money. But you can talk a lot about where they go, some ways you can, in what the schedule is going to be like, and without directly asking it. Some questions I like are where do you operate? Do you do day trips? If it's an individual or a family, or there's family members that you're supporting, where do they have homes? And a lot of times try to know the answers to these questions before you ask them in the interview, and then you can have a kind of a positive reaction to some of that stuff. Like if you already know that you love skiing, and you already have heard through other people on the field that they go to Aspen all the time because the owner has a house there, and you love that, then be mentally prepared to have a positive reaction to that. If they have factories in Detroit and you really care for Detroit, but if you know that answer's coming, you could still manage your oh yeah, no, great, that's
right. And a good lead into those exact questions you're talking about, Mike, would be,
right,
is the aircraft primarily used for business purposes, or does the owner also use it to travel to his homes? Is there personal travel on the aircraft? That
and you know what that equates to. What you just asked is, am I going to be working a lot at weekends, or is it mostly during the week?
Right, or both.
But what sounds better, what Sean said or what I said, right? So, so there's a finesse involved in asking those questions. Totally.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you got me. You got me there.
And what another thing that's important that you'll know ahead of time, don't ask this in the interview, but is the company a public business or is it privately held? And there's arguments for both, working for both. I won't really weigh in on that, but public companies like new airplanes, expensive airplanes, and they usually fly really nice stuff because they're not spending their money, they're spending the shareholders' money, which can be a good thing. But when public companies don't do as well, they have to answer to all those shareholders. So a lot of times that turns to downsizing, where private companies, they may not spend it like the public companies do, but they may keep it because they really enjoy the plane and they don't have to answer to anyone if there's an economic downturn. So we could do an entire podcast on that, but that's kind of the quick points on public versus private. But know that going into the interview, what else can you think of, Sean?
Well, that brings up a good point of knowing, knowing stuff before you go into the interview. So, it would be so advantageous for you to, Thomas, and hopefully you didn't mention this, but hopefully this is the case, that you know somebody, particularly a pilot that works there. You have some type of inside intel. If you don't have any direct contact with somebody, maybe you know somebody who knows somebody. Getting some stuff, even something you could just straight up ask this individual if you get them on the phone. What was your interview like? How long ago was that? Are they more focused on technical stuff in the interview, like you're told to descend, cross a point 100 nautical miles away. You're currently at flight level 330, and you need to cross this point at flight level 200. When are you going to start? Is it like that type of an interview, or are they wanting to get to know you, what type of human being you are type of interview? And, the biggest thing is just all the other stuff, schedule and pay and upgrade and stuff.
Yeah.
That type of intel before you go work for one of these outfits is important, because as corporate pilots, you choose this sliver of the industry for basically flying less. Mike and I have talked about this before on the show.
Right.
Your typical airline pilot can fly, when they're busy, when it's busy, and
Right.
You can be close to 100 hours a month.
Right.
I would say that's on the high end. Most of them are probably
30.
75 hours a month, something like that. But in the corporate world, it's
Oh, you meant airlines. I'm sorry.
yeah, I was saying airlines. In the corporate world, we may fly. A great corporate job is about 150 hours a year. Maybe up to 300 hours a year, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And now the pay in the corporate world is typically a little less than an airline pilot, but that's the trade-off.
Yeah.
You're home more. You could have a side business, side hustle. Where the airline guys they gotta be a little more strategic with scheduling to be able to have side hustles, or at least wait till they got some seniority and they can manipulate stuff a little bit. They're still flying the same amount of days, basically, 12 to maybe 15 days a month. You can pick up trips to make more money, but it's just they're flying all day. When they're out there flying, they're not typically doing one leg.
A very great question to ask that's not too intrusive, that's very common, is just simply, how many overnights do you guys do?
That's it. That is the critical question that you can put together a lot of pieces of the puzzle with.
Yeah, and most flight department managers will have that number memorized, off the type of they'll be prepared for that question, and it's a common question. It's not going to seem intrusive. If you ask too many questions about the schedule, they're like, well, this guy doesn't want to work. He's lazy. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful.
Right. That's where that intel comes in. So asking things about like, well, who does the scheduling? How many scheduled days off a month do I, that kind of stuff looks like you're, already wanting to be a slacker, the first time they lay eyes on you. So I would avoid that, save that for your intel provider to answer.
Right. Yes, and also it's always good to talk about the airplanes. You can talk about obviously the plane they're flying now, which you're going to know a lot about because you're going to know that ahead of time. And you can talk with the interviewer about that airplane and how they enjoy it and how that fits the company's needs, aka are they going to sell it and get something bigger or smaller. And then you can kind of get into, well, what's the plan here? How long do you think we'll be in this? What future is on the horizon, that kind of thing. Just to get an idea for the fleet. And those are very non-intrusive, average questions to ask. Yeah.
Right. And any questions to do with training are fair game. What type of, I assume there'll be some company in-dock training, but am I going to be typed right away in the airplane, or do you guys do an in-house second command training, and then at a later point I will be typed in the airplane? That type of stuff is fair game. Another great one is especially with a big flight department, big corporate, somebody's got 5-6 airplanes, what's the upgrade time?
Yeah.
In some of these corporate operators, it's not even a thing, because a lot of these people have switched to co-captain operations.
All captains.
Yeah, everybody's just a captain. Nobody's like a greenhorn first officer co-pilot, and then you finally pay your dues and you become a captain. It's not like that. Everybody's pretty much a co-captain at these operators, but you never know. it's a great question to ask. What's the upgrade time?
Yeah, that's a fantastic. I mean, yeah, I think, and don't ask all these questions, but I
Just throwing
I
some
would
stuff. Yeah.
take note of them, and then that gives you some great ideas and kind of read the room. For instance,
Might
you
be a
may
great
get
strategy, though, Mike. You turn this thing around and you interview them just as long as they interviewed you. I don't know.
yes, yes.
That could go either way. Maybe not.
Well, that's good. Yeah, if you have intelligence on the interview or find out what he's into, if you find out he's got a steerman that he likes to fly on the side and you like steermans, you might bring that up. You can ask about the guys and girls that you'll be flying with and what they are like, even if you already know, and then maybe react to those questions in a way that you might show that you would mesh with them, really well. There's a lot of personal things you could ask that might further think that you're a good fit, But just kind of read the room. A lot of department managers are very proud of their schedule. They're very proud of their quality of life of their pilots, and if they seem to react well to that, they're probably happy that you're asking those questions.
Well, absolutely,
so
they are.
Brag about what a great job it is.
Oh yeah, because Mike, you got to understand when you're sitting in this interview. I mean, whoever manages that flight department for this corporate operator is going to be sitting across from you, and the smaller operations, you may be sitting across from the owner. Most likely, you will be sitting across from the owner, but at a bigger thing, like like I mentioned Procter and Gamble, you're going to be sitting across the table from the director of the flight department, and absolutely he's going to be proud of whatever he's got going on with schedule and the operation there, because he's the one that fought for it all and most likely designed most of it. So
Yep. And one last one that you may not necessarily bring up, but it depends on the room and everything. But you do get a lot of guys will ask and gals succession questions, I guess you would say, if you're flying for an individual, because there are a lot of jobs out there, and I don't know what Thomas is up to, but where you're flying for one person that's extremely wealthy, that either sold their business or is in charge of their business, and if they pass away, which this is always a difficult thing, and this might be a second or third interview question, does that mean the airplane is sold, or is there a plan in place, or what do they feel is the longevity here? If it's just one individual, if it's blatantly obvious, you may not want to ask that question, and you may want to get some intelligence before you ask that. But it is a concern, because a lot of really wealthy people are very advanced in age. They really are. I mean, it's just the way it is. It takes a long time to make a lot of money. A lot of times,
Right. And you just reminded me of the way I've asked that question before, Mike, in an interview, to avoid that direct unpleasantness, is to ask, especially on these, the corporate stuff, it doesn't matter. But, what you're talking about is referencing who we've both flown for. You got one owner, one airplane. The question to ask is, who all uses the airplane? Is it go. Is it just you, or is other departments within the company using it? Whatever. I had one situation where not only was the owner using it, but he also had several dry leases on it. And even if he went away, there would be cause to keep the airplane around, or those leasees could get together and just purchase the airplane and that kind of thing. One more thing I jotted down here while you were talking. You had mentioned something about talking about airplanes, and is this airframe working for you guys? The mission you guys do with range and how many seats are in it, blah blah blah. You could turn that into, do you see in any time in the near future the need to add to the fleet? I mean, do you guys is that ever something to that effect?
Right.
When you're talking about, is this airframe working for you? Does everybody like it?
Yeah. Because more airplanes is better. More airplanes means more pilots underneath you as they get hired, and more opportunity, and all of that. So
Right.
these are all great things for you to decide. A lot of times when it's your first job, you'll be less selective and care less about some of these answers.
Right.
And then, when you already have a good job and maybe you're interviewing for one that's only slightly better, you may lean a little heavier on some of these
Yep.
questions.
Turn up the heat.
Yeah. So everything is based on your personal situation, but hopefully for our viewers, this really helps.
Yeah, and if nothing else, it definitely gave you some jumping off points besides the exact questions we asked. Do have a couple other things I want to add on. I jotted down here. Here's some questions that you absolutely do not want to ask. Okay, just to wrap it up. I think that's a pretty good list of stuff that could keep you talking for a while. Especially if you got a talker in this interview is just going to keep on rambling on about this and that and blah, blah, blah. But don't ask how much vacation. Don't ask any HR type stuff. You know what I mean? Stuff you're going to find out anyway that is probably going to be fine. This is a company who owns an airplane. They're going to take care of their people okay. They didn't accidentally own an airplane for, being inappropriate with their employees. So don't ask simple stupid stuff like, well, how much vacation time do I get, or you guys have health insurance, all
that can be handled by email later,
right. And you know what, that's going to be presented. You're going to get an offer letter. If they like you, you're going to get an offer letter that explains everything, all your benefit package, whatever. And if there's something in there that you have a question about or you're not comfortable with, that's emails back and forth with an HR person, not the guy you're sitting across the table from in the interview. Anything with vacation, paid leave, salary. Stay away from that one. You may get asked in the interview, probably if it's just you and an owner, I could see you getting asked, what would you be expecting salary? But that question's not going to come up in some kind of panel when you have, some other pilots sitting there and the, director of the flight department. Nobody's going to ask you that question, but, don't talk about money or vacation, anything like that.
Right. That'll be all. Once they establish that they like you, those details can all be worked out later.
Sure.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for watching, and we really appreciate all your support. Like we said in the beginning.
Wait, Thomas. One last thing. Hope it's probably already happened now because this email came in a little bit ago. But hopefully the job interview went well. If it hasn't happened yet, good luck.
Yeah, you're right. Because of the date on this, he probably already had the interview.
Right.
But hey, email us and let us know how it went. We'd love to know.
Please.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Keep the questions coming, guys. We love video questions.
Yep. If you got a question for us, you can email us at podcast@propilotplaybook.com. We love those video questions.
Thanks.